soO's IEM Katowice journey was something special. From going down in the group stage, losing the first three matches, and then coming back 4-0 to even get into the playoffs, and then having to go up against Serral, and then overcoming stats in the final after going down 0-2. It was just an amazing journey from soO. But the most crucial series, the most important one certainly, wasn't even the final where he outplayed stats pretty convincingly. It was when he had to outplay Serral in ZvZ, a matchup where Serral isn't the best at, but put his own magic through to actually win a WCS championship playing against the top Zergs in Europe, and then went over to Korea, went over to BlizzCon after that, and beat Rogue and Dark. When you beat Rogue and Dark, it's really hard to say your ZvZ sucks, doesn't it? So soO had to overcome Serral, someone who is pretty much the consensus number one player in the world. A few people argue Maru, but come on. In any case, it was such an exciting match, so I wanted to go over all the games and analyze them. Timestamps will be in the description box, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get into it. So, due to the fact this is a mirror matchup, I'm going to be jumping ahead to the important parts of each game, because obviously there's no point in going through the standard setup most of the times. Both players went for the exact same thing. I've paused the replay at 4:36 because this is where I can show you that Serral's lair was a bit faster, and although his evolution chamber was a bit faster, his upgrade actually lined up pretty much with soO's. So let's fast forward a bit. They literally have pretty much the same supply, both of them are making drones. Roach Warren finishes, and we're about to see around 520, 530 let's say. The last drones for Serral are up, and he's going to be attacking with a bunch of roaches while soO proceeds to drone a bit. Here's the overword foot. As you would expect from someone about to attack, Serral already made slightly more links and maybe a few more banelings, and this is one of the moves that I think almost cost soO in the final as well. I don't know why he's so hell-bent on playing Spire. Really doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. soO is the Roach god, what does he want to do with the Spire? It actually did help him out in one of the games slightly, but I think even in the game where it kind of worked for him on map 3, it was still a liability. Anyway, let's continue with the game. As you can tell, Serral has a huge army, doesn't run into two banelings because he's Serral. All the roaches are still incoming, his roach speed is going to be that much faster, and roach speed actually matters a lot, which we're going to find out a bit later. And here I'm going to pause again, because Serral decides to go for a Nydus network, and this is the type of Nydus network I really love. Not the bullshit all-in ones that actually don't even work most of the time, in spite of people crying like little bitches. So this is the perfect type of Nydus network, because in the mirror matchup the defender's advantage can be too much sometimes, and of the defender's advantage alone you can lose battles, especially when it comes to Roach versus Roach and the game gets decided by angles. So a couple of things are going for Serral in this game. The upgrades align perfectly, but the problem is, because soO was planning to go Spire, look at the unspent resources for him. He really wants the Mutalisks, but Serral's timing is just going to destroy him. So let's fast forward a bit. Nydus network is about to finish, even more overwords for Serral, and like I already said, Serral stopped making drones about 10 or so ago, so he's going to have the bigger army, literally twice the roach count. The link count is pretty similar, to be fair, and soO does have the defender's advantage, so you would think he has a chance, right? But even the speed is a bit late. And obviously, there's going to be no defender's advantage if you use a Nydus network. I don't know why more Zergs don't do this more often. Look at this beautiful armor. I guess that's why it's getting nerfed. Anyway, Serral could have just defended it just as easily. soO had a nice flank, so to speak, but soO doesn't really understand the situation. He's taking a forward base, he didn't and couldn't honestly stop the Nydus, and he's going to get pushed out. He's even going for +2 attack, his speed is about to finish, but his Spire is also about to finish. That's unspent resources he could have used, and obviously didn't. He mined a lot more gas than he needed, obviously, And honestly, he could have spotted this attack coming, but I think he just assumed Serral would be going for a longer game, which Serral had no interest in doing in the first game. Once again, I think this type of Nydus play is really good, and it doesn't really cost that much. I don't know why Serral didn't utilize it more. I don't know why soO didn't utilize it at all during the tournament. I guess they wanted to go with safer shit, but this doesn't look very dangerous as you're knocking on his door, does it? And your reinforcements can come instantly, or you can just use this one to flank. And what's soO going to do? Sacrifice the third base and the fourth base? No, not really, right? Serral has his own third bases. If soO happened to split his army, Serral just wins. Basically, Serral fucks him over because this much territory is too much to defend, and the Nydus network was the perfect choice. As you can tell, soO is making a bunch of roaches. The supplies look even, but when you go and look at it, Serral is up, and obviously, just looking at the roaches on the field, Serral is still up enough roaches and he's about to have the perfect flank. So, in spite of the defender's advantage, Serral is going to win this game pretty easily. Drones are already dying, this is more than enough damage to just turn around, but why would he? Going to the unit step, Serral already has a drone lead, and like I said, the second Nydus allows him to set up a perfect flank. He can kill the lair, he can do basically anything he wants, even more Nydus worms in production. Basically soO has nothing he can do, and Serral wins this game pretty handily. Basically soO figures out this is never going to work. GG. I'm going to start off game 2 a bit earlier at the start because there's something worth noting here, which happened I think at least a few times in the series. Serral decides to go for a 3-hatch play while soO goes for the fast lair on 2 hatches. And you might think one of these styles is superior. No, not really. They just require you to play in a different way. So soO decided to go 2-hatch, meaning Serral should be able to deny his third, and that's where his advantage is going to come from. But Serral, I think, overestimates how eager soO is going to be to take this base. Honestly, soO might have even gone for a 2-hatch build. I know that's a bit old and outdated. But basically, what happens in this game is that Serral overmakes links because he understands he has to cancel this third base. You can't let soO get a fast lair, faster gases, etc. and have more drones because when you have a wall, you're going to make more drones naturally. You feel safer. So Serral slightly overmakes links. They're still going for basically the same shit, and Serral is supposed to have slightly more Warva because his third hatch is going to finish that much faster, of course. However, when you spend that Warva on links that don't do anything, you're already kind of behind, aren't you? Look at the supply. Unfortunately, a lot of the time when you're talking about a mirror matchup, you're going to have to resort to saying things like, look at the supply, because, for example, this graph is really useful when talking about the game. So, Serral is supposedly on 3 bases, right? But their worker supply is the exact same, and the army supply is pretty much the exact same. But the problem is, soO is making roaches, while Serral made a lot of links. So that supply looks even, but it's actually not. So 20 links right now for Serral to 2 from soO. soO's roaches aren't even out yet. And that's the difference in drones Serral could have had, but doesn't have, because he still has to be afraid. soO could be hiding, let's say, 10-15 roaches here, which can march across the map and kill his third, right? So Serral has to be careful. Maybe he was a little too careful. So let's speed the game up a bit. Here comes the roach speed from soO because he got the much faster lair. I'm not even sure if Serral's own lair he started. Nope, because he went fast 3-hatch. Keep that in mind. And here are the drones. So this is an easy way to get confused. Let's speed up the game slightly. So Serral has 41 drones to soO's 37, right? So you're thinking to yourself, Serral is on 3-hatch and he has more drones, right? The problem is soO's drones were mining longer. These links cost Serral, actually, because soO decided not to go for a fast third. And that's actually a reasonable decision. When you go for a fast lair, you can't also want to go for a fast third. That's how it gets cancelled and you give Serral the edge. So let's keep speeding along. Roaches are coming up for both players, but keep all these links in mind. There's a reason I have them selected. Only now Serral's lair starts, like 5 minutes into the game, while soO's roach speed is about to finish. Here are the roaches I mentioned that he's going to hide. He wasn't obviously technically hiding them. Serral expects the Roach flood to come. There is no third and it's 5 minutes into the game. He should know, basically. But here's the problem. Like I mentioned on the first map, Roach speed actually matters in these battles. And while Serral is going to be on creep, even off creep, soO's Roaches are pretty fucking fast. So let's slow the game down. Serral has a great position here. He actually should have probably contested this a bit more. Here comes his links. Maybe he should have counterattacked, but when you have this wall, it doesn't really make sense. They're not going to get in. Maybe the better query would be why not keep the links around to cancel this base, because otherwise soO is basically doing a 2-base all-in, which he didn't. So let's speed the game up slightly. soO tries to go up this ramp, it doesn't work because Serral has a good position. However, it seems like Serral doesn't figure out what's about to happen. It's almost like he's afraid of a link counterattack, some paranoia maybe setting in, because soO still hasn't taken the third base, so maybe he expects a much more serious attack. While soO is being fairly reasonable, he's going for the +2 attack, he's definitely not all-in by any stretch of the imagination. And Serral is stuck making Roaches, but he keeps too much of his army back. He should have repositioned pretty much immediately, and also, this is a small mistake too many players make. They want to connect bases with creep, and I know it feels ridiculous pointing out a mistake from Serral, but keep in mind he's still human. See all these overwards, if they were spread here, he could have dropped creep so he could move easily between the bases, and these overwards aren't getting killed, especially if you put one of them on patrol. There aren't enough Ravagers and no one is going to waste their Ravager shots to kill random overwards, and he couldn't see them anyway. Anyway, my point is that Serral didn't connect these two bases, which makes it so much easier for him to be out of position, which he absolutely is. soO manages to walk down this ramp, and puts himself in a reasonable position to start contesting Serral's third base. And watch the production tab, Serral is only going to be making Roaches at this point. You would think that's no problem, right? They have pretty much the same amount of Roaches, Serral has queens, nothing is going wrong for Serral, he has a few more drones, things are looking great, right? But keep this +2 attack in mind. So, let's go back to the infamous Roach Wars. The position is actually getting better and better for Serral. You would honestly think soO is pretty screwed. Like, what's he supposed to do now, right? Some Ravagers, though, are getting morphed. And keep in mind, soO has the speed. So he can keep poking in and pulling back, and Serral's own creep is actually helping him. Just a little bit, obviously. Look at this huge amount of units. You would think, honestly, this is more than enough to hold or not be bothered. But as soon as he stops, soO rows over him. And let's show this. Serral does see the third base, so he knows soO isn't actually all-in. This is a very helpful overward. But soO has no or little interest in stopping. Let's make sure the production tab is up, otherwise we can't tell what the fuck is going on in a ZvZ. Supply is so even right now, and Serral does have the drone lead, he has the Warva lead, in a sense, but you have to keep in mind, these queens aren't really injecting. At most he is injecting this base, right? He doesn't have more queens here, or more queens here, so Serral isn't actually winning on Warva, believe it or not. Which is hard to understand, but I hope I made it clear enough, because of the queen's positioning. He's basically using the queens as a bit of a crutch to compensate for the fact his speed still isn't ready. That's all because of his decision to go fast 3-hatch with no lair. So, more Ravagers being morphed for soO so he can keep the pressure up. He's morphing the most hurt Roaches basically. And this is his transition. He makes a bunch of drones. He's actually going to go way above Serral's count, which is also critical. And Serral is actually making 3 more queens. I think at this point he was either noticing the lack of Warva or planning a Nydus all-in. The problem is, soO is still on top of him. And I think I also didn't really notice that Serral pulled the queens back. I think he did realize the Warva was becoming a problem, and if you ever get behind on Warva in a ZvZ, that's when you're really screwed. So Serral, I think, has the superior angle actually. But soO has a decent enough angle and a lot of Ravagers. Serral just has one Ravager, which doesn't really make sense when you think about it. He's losing Roaches left and right, speed still isn't ready, and +2 attack is about to be. So right now, soO has +2 attack, he has more drones than Serral, so 53 to 46. He has the same number of bases, obviously less of a bigger army because he keeps losing units to do this. 13 to 11 though, not much of a difference, right? Serral does have a bunch more queens, so a Nydus follow-up could be cool. But let's see what happens. They're basically producing the same amount of roaches now. soO pulls back slightly. I don't know why Serral didn't morph an Overseer and just follow this army around. This Overlord just isn't good enough, to be honest. He doesn't really know what soO is up to. He has an Overseer in his base, right? So he can see what the Warva is getting spent on, but that's not the same as keeping tabs on this army. Like, this army could be home, or it could be still literally here. So Serral goes up with a little army of his own, and this is where he's going to make a crucial mistake. Remember the Nydus I mentioned? This is exactly what Serral decided to do. But here's the problem. Why is he doing this? Without the Overseer, I mean. So Serral wants to counterattack right now, but he's simultaneously pushing soO's army back. Why? You want to keep soO's army here, because if soO's army stays here, soO's army can defend this actually. Imagine a Nydus Worm here if soO's own army is still here. We could go into a crazy base race, or Serral can actually bounce between the Nyduses and defend and attack simultaneously. He can only use a couple of roaches to send into soO's main. What's soO going to do exactly? So Serral actually at this point hasn't lost the game. He's just down an upgrade, down a couple of units, and the problem is people are going to remember only this moment right now. Right about now. So keep in mind the supply is even, the drone count is in soO's favor, but Serral doesn't need to do this at all right now. In fact, this is the move that's going to lose him the game. Let's fast forward. So, this is the moment people actually remember. And that's the problem. So people remember that Serral used the move command, and then at the end of the game they look at the supply and say, oh, he was just down 20 supply, right? So he was always going to lose. Absolutely not. He was definitely not always going to lose. He could have done so much work with the Nydus. But I think he just got tilted that he lost this army. My question though would be, why is this army even pushing? Look at soO's Overlord. Why did Serral never kill this Overlord? Like, it doesn't make any sense. He didn't use his Overlords to scout this army, and he didn't at all need to push this army back, so I think he actually lost the game here, when he decided to start pushing at all with his army. He should have just stayed back and defended, air quotes, while making soO feel ultra safe, because that's what soO was feeling. soO was feeling that Serral is trapped in his own 3 bases, so he could drone up safely, which he did. He droned up to 56, and then got an upgrade lead out of all things. So, in spite of taking faster 3 bases and setting up an eventual Nydus all-in, so to speak, considering the fact he wasn't going for any more upgrades, Serral was technically all-in at this point. He didn't need to push out, and pushing out was what lost him the game, not the move command. Because the move command is such a terrible mistake, I agree, but why did he move command? Because in his vision, he didn't even see soO's army. Once again, let's go back to the vision. Serral's only Overlord is this one. Why doesn't Serral see anything here? There's no good explanation, to be honest. And now he sees the army again. Doesn't need to push at all. What you do right now? Go back. Absolutely go back. Make the Overlord see that you're going back. And then kill it with a Ravager maybe. Whatever you decide to do. There is no reason to push out here, and this was the mistake that lost him the game. Not what happens 30 seconds or so later. Though, to be fair, if you want to be crystal clear, this army always had to have an Overseer with it. Because if he did have an Overseer, he would have spotted this army sooner, and then not made the mistake of move commanding. You can tell he was trying to do too many things at the same time. APM sometimes can bite you on the ass. Wasn't looking for a second, and that's all it takes sometimes to lose in Starcraft. But the decision was what really lost him the game. Uncharacteristic for Serral, when you think about it. In any case, GG. So I'm going to skip game 3 for now, because obviously it was the longest game of the series and basically the deciding game, so to speak, in spite of the fact it was the third map. Instead I'm going to jump into map 4 because it's much easier to explain what happened here. Once again we see Serral go for this more mineral heavy style, again with the link speed, while soO decides to go to base layer. Like I mentioned on map 2, this is a specific choice both players make. No one actually has an advantage of this. Serral, of course, manages to sneak a link in, just in case he was wondering. He can also see there is no third base, so he knows it's basically going to be a replay of the second game, more or less. And keep in mind how Serral lost that game. He made a terrible decision, didn't position his overworlds correctly, and suddenly tilted and move commanded his army. Basically wasn't looking when he should have. Mistake that can happen to anyone, really. So, now though, soO decides to do something different. He goes for a relatively fast third base. Remember how in the second game soO didn't take this base. soO actually built up a big army and pushed on Serral. So basically right now he is daring Serral to do what he in theory should do and punish this fast third base, because soO can defend this, and Serral should know that soO can defend this. If Serral made those 14 to 20 links now, this base gets cancelled. So he's basically fucking with Serral right now, soO is, because he's mocking him or daring him to do something about this, which Serral actually doesn't. Serral says, you know what, you can have this greedy ass base, I'm just going to play a straight up macro game. And surprisingly, it's going to pay off. I think this was a baller move by soO though. Just taking a base you know for a fact you can defend. And look what he does as a follow-up. So, he takes the greedy base, which he shouldn't, in theory, and that's why he didn't in the second game, and then starts massing roaches, because think of it from his perspective, he's going for the double buff. If Serral builds a bunch of links instead of roaches and attacks this base, what's soO going to do? Counterattack and kill him with roaches. But instead Serral doesn't take the bait and he's building roaches. He's basically thinking about a more aggressive stance from soO instead of punishing the third, and that's going to pay off for him. soO does build a few more drones, basically playing charades for the Overseer coming around. And he can see himself, if he wants to, that Serral is also building drones. But he does slightly overmake drones, if I do say so myself. Though to be fair, it's ZvZ, it's very hard to know when to stop exactly in a mirror matchup. I don't think these drones are going to be what costs soO the game. So this is around the point where both players eventually stop building drones. I love Contaminate on any Zerg upgrade ever. It's one of the most underutilized abilities in all of Starcraft 2. So Serral is showing a huge army to soO. Huge army, relatively big army, let's not use hyperbole when it's not needed. Drone count is in the lead for soO, so you would think Serral is behind at this point, right? But this time around, Serral is also going for the +2 attack, and his speed is almost done. Remember, part of the reason Serral lost the second game was because his lair was so far behind and his speed basically never finished in time. So it's around 6 minutes now. Let's speed up slightly. Serral keeps posturing as if he's going to attack. Look at this overworld. Serral is basically trying to sell a story right about now. He sees that soO's army is just as big, if not bigger, so he turns around as he should. Drone lead is still is actually now in Serral's court. He understands this, turns around to defend his lead, basically. Though to be fair, soO has been mining for longer, the supply is pretty much even though. Serral is going for the speed upgrade for overworlds, which I really appreciate. I think it's such an underutilized upgrade again. More so in ZvZ it is used though. So, soO breaks down these rocks. Not a bad idea. This is one of the worst chokes in our map pool right now. So going through this is a fucking travesty. Not enough people break down these rocks, so I think this was a great decision. And now he's going to break these down as well. I don't think this was a problem. I don't think this was wasted time. I think this was really important for your reinforcements. When you're the attacking player in ZvZ, reinforcements are super important because you want to negate the defender's advantage as much as you can. So, around 8ish minutes, you can see soO's army is pretty big. 51 roaches to 45, slightly lead for soO. Ravagers though are in Serral's advantage, and also queens. Also, this time around, he does have an overseer. He can spot this army if it starts retreating, obviously. Defender's advantage and Nango are going to favor Serral. Upgrade lead is only slight for soO. He basically likely clicks on Serral's units, sees he has the upgrade lead, and decides, even in a slightly inferior angle, I just have to go right now, because this is my window to do some serious damage. And I think part of him does realize, he does see Serral's drone saturation. He can tell Serral didn't skip any drones, basically, at this point. So soO goes for the engagement. He's basically forced to do so by his own timing. But the angle is inferior. He does have less Ravagers. Serral's targeting is pretty decent. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say some of these players have godlike micro in Roach v Roach battles. We know that's not the highest level of micro in Starcraft, obviously. Throughout the fight though, Serral does slightly better. He does have the slightly better angle. His Ravagers, all 5 of them, actually survive. His Queens even are doing so well. What's this? Overseers? Okay. And keep in mind, Serral's reinforcements are always going to be faster. You can tell the supply is plummeting for soO, because that's how things work when one player has more drones. So a 10 drone lead is pretty significant. Army supply is even going in Serral's favor. The game is over. There's not much soO can do at this point. He's very far behind. Serral is going for even more queens. He was likely thinking, how about another Nydus? And soO goes back into drone production, takes more gas, which is basically the white flag. When you go for this kind of a giant attack and it doesn't work. So remember the key difference this time around. Serral stayed at home. Serral could see the army of soO the entire time. He was actually the one who poked out with a bigger army, at first at least. He didn't fall behind in drones. He didn't not have roach speed. Or I should have just said, he did have roach speed. So soO couldn't fuck around with a faster army of creep. All these factors went in Serral's favor, and also he had enough Ravagers this time around to get some advantage of the free shots. So basically Serral, all the mistakes Serral did in the second game, he didn't do in this game, and also didn't take soO's clever bait with third base. Now Serral even goes for a Spine Crawler, he even goes for a +1 armor, goes for a fourth base. soO can see the fourth base, goes for his own. Basically, Serral is daring soO to go into a longer game because he knows he's completely in the lead and things aren't going to work out for soO. soO isn't even going for his own upgrade, I think, because he realizes he's behind and is cutting some corners. I don't know if he was planning some sort of switch. Doesn't really have that much gas to switch. He's about to max out as well. Let's fast forward a bit. This is the boring part of the game. I do want to mention as well that Serral does go for Tunneling Claws and Burrow, though that's signature Serral. So we're going to see some posturing around. soO is going to try and split his army slightly. The problem is, now he goes through this choke because he sees Serral's army is ready here, and this choke is never going to work. The counterattack is cute and it's going to work slightly, but Serral does split enough units off to stop this. And he does have the defender's advantage, always. So, these units don't seem like they're enough, right? But they aren't meant to crush this, they're meant to delay this and basically not get Serral's base cancelled. So, they accomplish their goal, they buy Serral enough time to bring more units if he wants to, and also keep denying this position. soO does manage to sneak his way in due to the clever posturing by this army, but it's still not an insane angle. And Serral is about to have +1 armor, which is the nail in the coffin for soO. And the reason he can do this, he can afford all of this, is because he's up in drones. The difference doesn't seem as big now because Serral spent some drones on things like spines and could have lost some drones here. I wasn't looking, to be honest. But still, Serral's smallish lead of 10 drones, not really a small lead, but come on. Let him get these extra upgrades. He's even starting +2 armor. Basically, soO is done. There's absolutely nothing soO can do at this point. He tries a clever two-pronged attack, but Serral is basically too good. Has the bigger army here, which is a slight mistake, but still has more than enough units to not lose this base, and here's where he put his Spinecrower. So there's nothing soO can do at this point. The supply is dead even, maxed out, right? You would think it's not that bad, right? But Serral's Roaches can heal by burrowing. He can send counterattacks with burrowed Roaches. We know how much Serral loves them. Basically, Serral did everything right this game as opposed to the second game, and that's how he wins. Also, keep in mind, this is a best of 5. So, Serral was down on match point with the pressure on him. Classic Serral plays out of his mind perfect when he's down on match point, of course. So, let's speed this up. There's not much more to mention. As you can tell in the production tab, it's going to be mainly Roaches. Serral even moved command slightly to kill off the Ravagers, and like I mentioned, all he has to do now is burrow his Roaches, let them heal, and counterattack. There's nothing soO can do. The superior upgrades are too much, and Serral is even putting down an infestation pit just in case all of this magically gets cleaned up, which is never going to happen. As you can look at the supply and tell from it, 50 supply is way too much in a mirror matchup. The game is over. As soO is going to be realizing right about now. Serral even has this cute Roach counter, forces his way up, there's nothing soO can do. 100 supply up, GG. Time for map 5. It was once again the last map, the final map, but I'm going to go over the third last because it's the longest game. So, map 5, once again, I stopped at the start to show you. Serral keeps going for the 3 hatch, soO keeps going for the 2 hatch layer. I think both styles are perfectly fine. You can play whatever way you want, doesn't really matter. What's going to end up mattering, we'll see in about a few minutes. So, as you can tell, let me pause. Let's not speed up too fast. soO is going for a timing attack of sorts. His Roach speed and Roach attack is going to line up. Serral's Roach attack is also coming along, but his lair isn't ready again. Remember game 2. More importantly, remember how Serral lost game 2. And here is where soO does a cute adjustment. So, soO is seemingly going for the 1-1 attack, right? +1 speed and +1 attack, let's say. Probably isn't +1 speed, fuck it, who cares. So, Roach. soO puts down a second evolution chamber, soO, his spirit animal being the Roach, of course. And this is kind of weird when you think about it. He also, though, puts down the fast third hatch. And remember what I said on the fourth map. Serral didn't punish the third hatch, but this time he decides, you know what? soO actually tried to get away with this on the fourth map. I'm going to punish him, because he's doing the exact same thing, and I'm not going to let him get away with this fast base. But once again, soO is actually going to go a little aggressive of this. So here come the links. Like I mentioned before, soO can't defend this. This is way too early. If you go 2 hatch Roach, 2 hatch lair to go for a faster Roach speed and Roach +1, there is no way you can defend this against someone who went 3 hatch links with speed, obviously. So the base dies, and you would think, wow, Serral is so far ahead, right? This is going so well for Serral. But remember what I said on the fourth map. soO has to retake this base. That much is true. Because if he doesn't retake this base, Serral just sees with the overword, starts building spines like a motherfucker, and hopes. But soO puts down the hatch because he knows you can't actually let the other Zerg player know, oh yeah, I'm going to be on 2 hatch forever, when you saw me try to take the hatch earlier, right? So, Serral's lair is about to finish. He keeps using these links to scout, and the overword, of course. Sneaks in only 1 link to scout, to see what's coming out of the larva, but the link dies too fast, unfortunately. And what soO is trying to do right now is use this small force just to hold the base while he keeps building up roaches, and he's actually going to forego the attack, so to speak. Let's speed up a bit. So the roach speed is done, right, and the +1 is about to be done. But he doesn't really go right away. He could have gone much earlier, as the speed was finishing up. Look at the drone count. Serral is up at 49. He's actually slightly overdroned, while soO is going for the same drone count he goes for when he goes to base. Building slightly more, a few more though. Overwards in queue though. So he's using this force to make sure these links don't fuck with his third base again. He needs this Warva. And also needs the third, obviously. He's building a bunch of drones though. Definitely not all-in by any stretch of the imagination. And isn't using this army aggressively in terms of basically 1Aing this army over to Serral's third and trying to cause damage. When I first saw the timing of +1 and speed, I thought that's what he was going to go for. I thought once again this was a fake, like in the fourth map, but it actually wasn't, because soO was actually going for a +2 attack +1 armor timing. And this is what's going to kill Serral, which Serral doesn't understand right now. So soO is making drones. If Serral runs in right now, he's going to see drones are transferring over. soO is going for a longer game, right? And even at the front he can see the 2 evolution chambers. So he might be feeling safe himself. He might put down his own evolution chamber. Instead, Serral starts upgrading +1 carapace for his own units, and I don't know why. Maybe he didn't see. So yeah, he did see. So I don't know why he decides to go for just being down 1 upgrade by default. Maybe he had confidence he can play with that, or he wanted to incorporate a lot more links, I don't know. Even more drones for soO, even more drones for Serral. Seems like the game is going to go long, right? But the problem is, if your opponent has 2 upgrades and you just have 1 upgrade, just 1 evolution chamber, like I mentioned in some of the earlier maps, overseers are pretty fucking good, and if you have just 1 evolution chamber and you're already down an evolution chamber from your opponent, what's to stop him from just doing this forever? And then your units are going to fall behind even more. So Serral is going to have a ton more units to hold, while look at the roach count, it's basically the same, and soO is about to have a 2 upgrade lead. Even more drones. Drone count is pretty much the same. Serral has a bit of a lead, doesn't really matter right now. And I think this is kind of ridiculous right now. I know I said this is a pretty cool upgrade. It's not a really cool upgrade when your opponent is going for double actual combat upgrades while you're going for overward speed. There's nothing stopping Serral from just morphing an overseer instead of going for this upgrade. I think this was also a mistake. In hindsight, obviously. Let's speed up. Like I said, he understands he needs to go for a lot more units if he's going to hold this, because he's going to fall behind in upgrades, obviously. And this is becoming a serious problem. So this move out, I don't know what the point is. He's probably trying to do something similar to the thing he did in game 4. The problem though, this time around, is that soO is going to get a much better angle and he's going to have an upgrade lead. So Serral does the exact same thing soO is doing to him, right? But soO is patient because soO knows for a fact he's going to have an advantage if he just waits. And keeps doing the same thing to Serral, obviously. So, soO's own +1 armor is about to finish. Their roach count is pretty much the same, look at the supply. Serral is even in the lead, supply-wise, because like we said, his only chance is to have more units. But what happens when both of you max out? You can't have more units then, can you? And then the upgrade is what kills you. So, Serral doesn't really understand the situation, I think, not fully anyway. While he sees that soO himself hasn't taken a fort base, Serral puts down a fort catchery and soO can clearly see this, which I think is the go button in his head. Even more so, his +2 attack just finishes. This is a huge anti-timing by Serral. I think he completely misread the game, and honestly, the contaminates don't seem that important until you see that Serral actually obviously wants this upgrade, and he can't get it at all in time. He should have gone for a second evolution chamber if he was going to go for a macro game, against another Zerg player going for double Evo. I think what he was banking on was soO going for the earlier timing, like I mentioned, and he really underestimated this evolution chamber, or thought soO just put it down randomly to fake him out, just to make it easier to defend here with a tighter choke against the Lynx. So Serral unfortunately misreads the game, and sometimes that's all it takes to lose the game. He didn't make a huge mistake in that regard, but it ends up being a huge mistake, isn't it? So here he is trying to fight. Both players see the army size. It's basically the same army size, 140 to 130. Like, doesn't matter, right? But soO has a slightly bigger army size with better upgrades. Just one attack upgrade up is more than enough to absolutely crush this, in spite of the defender's advantage, right? But Serral isn't even using the defender's advantage. If you were Serral right now, basically your only chance is to start throwing down spines here, I don't know. I don't know where you could throw down the spines, because if you throw them down here, soO just walks around, kills you. I don't know what you're supposed to do at this point. You've played yourself into a corner. Once again, there is no creep connecting these bases. I think that's just such a common mistake. It doesn't matter who you are, it seems, Serral or soO. Too many players do that. Well, as I say that, soO has connected his bases. And once again, Serral seemingly does a move command because he isn't looking. Or basically expects soO to respect him too much. And with this move, going up this way, he's put himself infinitely out of position, it seems. Now, basically he could bank on the fact soO stops here to kill the rocks. But why would he? soO can see Serral's army, he can sneak his entire army here. And at this point, Serral can't mine anymore. And this is a huge problem, because both of these players are maxed out. Serral has a bigger bank, right? But that bank is going to get spent so quickly. And his fort catchery is basically useless. If he makes any units here, and he doesn't even have Warva, but imagine he did have Warva. If he makes any units here, they're going to get destroyed by soO. So Serral is about to have a 2 base income against someone with a basically 3 base income. Serral is trying this sneaky move, basically trying to force soO to turn around, but why would he? Like, if you're soO in this spot, your reinforcements are going to kill this, there's no reason to turn around. Your army sizes here are pretty much the same, and you could argue Serral's army is going to be smaller because he sent a few roaches to counterattack. And look at the positioning by soO. This is the perfect place to fight Serral, and the defender's advantage and the defender's angle doesn't help him this time around. Certainly not as much as it did on the fort map. soO could even snipe this hatch and snipe this hatch, in which case he could go back home and defend. Serral still doesn't have +2 attack. Like I already mentioned, this attack gets cleaned up pretty fast. soO doesn't send his drones to mine right away, but he has killed 12 drones. He's obviously microing this army. This is the more important thing to micro right now. Roach is coming back in, but as you can tell, the supply is already starting to tell the story. soO is now up in supply, in army supply. Worker supply seems even, but when you're basically not mining as well, and your hatch is about to go down, doesn't seem as even, does it? soO goes for a pretty... Serral goes for a pretty aggressive attack. He basically tries to bait soO to retreat, because sometimes this is going to trick your brain into thinking, oh, he's about to wipe my entire army. But soO actually has pretty decent angles, actually has the superior angle at this point. And Serral's Ravagers are about to go down. There's not much left to buffer for them. You can keep your eyes on the +2 attack as well. 3 roaches for soO are working on the fort base. At any point soO can go back home. Here come the desperation drones, the get to Zerglings as I like to call them. At any point he can click on this hatch and kill it. He probably should have, to be honest. But killing the hatch doesn't kill the Warva, so it doesn't matter. Right away, at least. Serral doesn't have enough left. +2 attack, never finished. Contaminate to stop the Warva, doesn't really matter though. All these drones are trying to move away, they're going to die though. This base is going to die, there's nothing Serral can do. GG. soO is the Katowice champion. A few series later, of course. But this was obviously the final game. Serral didn't manage to pull off another epic comeback as he's known to do. And we're going to go into the final game I'm going to be looking at, the third map, the longest game, because that's the one that really ended up costing him. This was obviously slightly misread by him, but I don't think he played that poorly in this game. The forward base did kill him, not positioning his army properly, going back for this angle did make it easier for soO. Not connecting his bases did make it easier for soO, but I think on the third map is where he really lost it, because say what you will about Serral's epic comebacks, but when he front runs, he closes the games out so often. He wouldn't have needed to have magical moments on the fourth and fifth maps if he played the third map slightly better, or more importantly, if soO didn't play the third map absolutely godlike. So let's go into that map next. So this is going to be the final map I'm looking at today. It's going to be the third map, the longest game, obviously. And funnily enough, I think this is the only map where Serral and soO went for the exact same build. soO didn't go for his two base play, I think because the distance on the map is too long, so he decided, fuck it, I'm going to go for a more normal 3-hatch build on this map, which I think was fair. And actually, when you think about it even more, it's actually impressive that soO can just switch styles whenever he wants to, because when you think about it, this is supposed to be Serral style, right? Throughout this game, while I was watching it at least, I had the feeling that soO was beating Serral at his own game. And let me just define what I mean by Serral's own game. I mean the game where you make a bunch of roaches and then you out-multitask your opponent and fucking end up killing them. Serral has more depth to him, of course. He does play the late game. He does like higher tier units, more so than soO does, clearly. But yeah, I got the feeling throughout the game that soO was playing Serral's own game and still beating him at it, which was so impressive at the time. But let's really break down what actually ended up happening in the game, what resulted in that. Evolution Chamber going up for Serral. I'm speeding through the start of the game because obviously it's a 30-minute game. I don't think we need to talk about every single move they made. Doesn't make that much sense. They're obviously going to be building up roaches, of course. Roach Warren plus one attack is coming, drones all over the place, looking at each other's supply of drones, making just enough links and banelings not to die. A lot of focus was put onto this move. That soO just killed a bunch of links for Serral in a 27-minute game. I don't think this was the move that won the game, let's be real. But it is slightly sloppy by Serral. It seemed like throughout the series he was basically busy or maybe playing a bit faster than he should be. Which is such a weird problem to have. Imagine having the problem that you have too much APM and you're trying to do too much. Sneaking in this link though from soO. So fucking bower. These two banelings almost make it as well. This kill two drones. Basically cute moves all around. Serral once again goes for his overworld speed, which is perfectly fine on this map. And once again, this time around, soO took the fast third base with a more normal opening with fast links, so Serral is much more safe doing this than against the roaches and against the double evolution chamber, which isn't present here. Not right now anyway. And not by soO. So, bunch of roaches coming up. Let's switch over to the units. 6 roaches for soO, 9 roaches for soO. Like I said, bunch of roaches for soO, no roaches for Serral yet. He is going to make them though. Like I already mentioned at the start, it's such a huge distance. It's not really a problem that his roaches aren't ready. As you can tell, soO's speed is even a bit late. He's not going for some giant ass attack, right? Fourth hatch being put down by Serral. This is a bit optimistic, especially considering he doesn't really have that many fighting units. His drone count is also insanely high. Going for a +2 attack, this is also pretty greedy. Everything is going Serral's way. He's playing his own game. There can be no complaints, so to speak of. But soO sees this, right? So now soO has to decide what is he going to do? Put down his own forward base or try to punish this? He decides to go for the slightly later base and is going to pressure Serral to keep him honest. Basically, he isn't really planning on killing him. drop overward being made by Serral. So I think at this point he was trying to style a bit too much, because look at everything he's doing. There's a reason the production bar is this big. So Serral is going to go for a drop overward Banelink harassment, while also going for a second evolution chamber, while also going for a faster forward base, while also going for a faster +2 attack. Even the +2 attack is faster. I think Serral was trying to do a little too much. And at this point the series is 1-1, right? So maybe he was a bit overcompensating for that seemingly giant error on map 2 at this point. Even running around with the overword, trying to deny the upgrade possibly. But now he brings it over to watch the army, as you always should as a Zerg player. Drop overward is coming, Serral sees the attack coming, his own units are ready. Like I ended up mentioning in my analysis of soO versus stats on the final map, you're not going to attack here, it's just too big, the defender's advantage is too big. soO is going to pull back in a second. Supply is pretty much even. Drone count is even. Roach advantage is in soO's favor, of course. But obviously Serral has the defender's advantage, has quite a few Ravagers. Equal amount of Ravagers, to be fair. He can always pull Queens if this starts looking like an all-in. I think he's about to lose this overward. Unfortunate. Should have been a patrol overward. But he's also simultaneously going for +1 carapace and +2 attack. Ironic when you think about how he lost the last game, right? So he does know you can go for 2 evolution chambers. But this is a much different scenario where he's going for forward bases, he's going for the late game guaranteed. So let's keep watching what happens. soO breaks down these rocks. Once again, soO decides to open up more angles, which is something you should always do if you're going to be the aggressive player. And here is a giant mistake Serral made, I think partly because he was watching soO's army. Look at all these herd drones. And Serral doesn't get basically any of them. He's going to drop down one more Banelink. This makes no sense. Look at the indecisiveness. When have you seen Serral do this? And loses the overword. So he killed no drones, basically, with 4 Banelinks and an overword. Lost the overword, lost the Banelinks. He basically used 1 Banelink. This is what pressure can do to you sometimes. It can even happen to Serral, as you can tell. He realizes this is a serious fucking army, and he realizes he's being greedy right now. So, because of his greed, because of his multitasking, he actually totally misplaced this, and he could have put soO on the back foot. soO wouldn't be dead, obviously. He has a fort base, he can always drone up and recover. But instead of putting soO behind and taking advantage of his setup, now Serral is behind, because he just wasted an overword full of units that could have made all the difference, and he still has to defend. This is a good angle, but look at how many units he has. It's basically almost a wasteful amount of units from both players, and all soO is doing right now is pressuring, buying time for his upgrade, buying time to get all his upgrades out, because he doesn't actually have a second evolution chamber. Serral, actually, I don't know if you spotted that in the top left, started tunneling close and cancelled them because I think he realizes the severity of the situation. Then though, starts an infestation pit. Decent-ish army split. This isn't big enough to make a difference for soO's giant army, so he can hold this. soO, though, like I already mentioned, is out multitasking Serral slightly. Army comes in, Serral pulls the force that was meant to defend here, and you can even see he has it hotkeyed, so it's not a 1A situation. He purposely pulls this army up to help, because he sees soO's giant army, and to be honest, panics. He can also see though that soO is about to counterattack, and where Serral failed before with his drop overward, in denying a third, so to speak, or denying some economy, soO is actually going to snipe him. The big flashy battle, the fireworks, the explosions are here, but this is what you should actually be watching to tell the real story of the game. So Serral doesn't split his units. Here's the army that always should have been here to defend. Something he did do in the previous games we watched. His +1 armor is about to finish and he'll have an upgrade, right? What does he do? Pull back. He got his damage, 17 worker kills. Absolutely insane. The steal wasn't clean up. Serral is building drones, and what is he doing? Immediate counterattack. He pulled back, let Serral see it to make his drones back up, and then immediately pulls back. So right now it's 53 to 64. And Serral isn't making any more drones because what is he thinking? I'm up basically one upgrade, which is good enough to win these battles. But if I stop making units, soO is going to roll over me, which is partially true. But the entire problem is that soO already did the damage, and now he has this army built up. He didn't lose anything to do the damage. Everything he lost is coming back over, basically, from the reinforcements. And he's going to keep the pressure on Serral. Something Serral himself is known to do. Has done to win championships in the past. So, good angle from Serral. A move command overextension from soO. But once again, look at the split. Serral doesn't chase this army because he can't really chase through this choke because the rocks aren't dead. soO knows which rocks to kill and which rocks not to kill for his game plan. And once again, here comes the counterattack. When he sees Serral is responding perfectly to this counterattack, he doesn't just do the stupid thing and let the roaches die for next to no damage. He knows he's ahead, he pulls back. And what does Serral do? He splits his army and has to micro on two fronts, because soO's bigger chunk of the army is coming right back in. Here's the problem. Serral knows he's behind, soO knows that Serral is behind. Look at the bank. So Serral here decides to go up in tech. He already has the infestation pit. He's going to go up in hive and try to go for vipers and better tech units to fight his way back in the game, but he's already behind because of this one counterattack that happened here, which he should have stopped. soO once again goes for the Spire. This is the Spire I mentioned that kind of works out, but almost doesn't. So let's fast forward a bit. Once again, everything soO is doing is attacking at two places at the same time. In two places at the same time. More gas is coming up for soO. When you're a 4-base Zerg, yeah, you can go Mutalisk then. Basically, what's funny is that a 2-base Mutalisk play and a 4-base Mutalisk play makes sense, but a 3-base Mutalisk play doesn't really make sense because they can make a bunch of roaches and kill you. Funnily enough, roaches that don't shoot up counter Mutalisks a lot of the time. So, this is a small mistake by soO. He has the superior position, so he's trying to abuse it. And actually, Serral has done once again a poor-ish split. He actually has split his army in three parts, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So he gives up this position to soO. Still, the angles are going to slightly work out. But he gives it up again. And look at the health on this hatchery. It's going to matter. That's why I'm mentioning it. soO does actually pull this army back. That's how good his multitasking was. Most players would have just lost this army. No reason to lose the army. That's why soO doesn't. Especially when you're trying to tech switch. You can't afford to lose units randomly. So right now soO is losing on both fronts, right? But here's the problem. Serral thinks he's behind, which he's right about. So he's stacked up to Hive and Hydras. I think he should have basically chosen either go into Hydras and Workers or go up to the Hive. Because when you go every which way and you're already having 2 evolution chambers, why not just go Hydras, right? You're going to have an inferior army supply, and that's why he can't counterattack really right now. More drones being made just now. Remember, he was down for about 10 drones for the majority of the game right about now. And it matters, look at the bank. Not a lot of gas for soO because he made a lot more roaches. which I think he made because he was assuming this is where Serral counterattacks and tries to win the game. Because otherwise, what's he going to do? Play from behind the entire game, which was what Serral went for. That's why the game is 30 minutes long. In a way, though, soO himself going for the Mutalisks prolonged the game. I think if he just put down a second evolution chamber or went up to Hive to get his own upgrades, he would have finished the game up faster, but whatever. Cool flank from Serral. He's trying to stop soO's constant abuse of this position. And he's going to. 3 spines coming up in every single base, I think. Guess not. Where's the 3rd spine? Yeah, every single base except the main. Makes sense. +3 attack coming from Serral. Once again, he's trying to do too many things, even when it doesn't look like it. And look at this shit. Like, soO's army should have never been able to do this, right? You saw Serral's army here, ready to flank and kill him. But once again, this small army, remember the army here that didn't die. This is basically the exact same army soO is going to use to secure the game. Once again, counterattacks, kills the queen, kills some drones mining gas, kills the geyser. Like, this is some important shit. And simultaneously, Serral has pulled back from basically the base he was trying to defend, which he does lose, actually. And at this point, what more can you say? The game is over, right? soO absolutely destroyed him, multitasking-wise. Out-zeroed Serral on multiple occasions throughout the game. And still has the bigger army. Because Serral, down in resources, has gone for too many things. Infestation Pit, Hive, Hydralisks, +3 attack even. This is just too much, guys. Like, you can't do everything. Even if you're Serral, even if you're godlike, you can't just do everything while your opponent is making roaches, not upgrading, and just pushing you on every single angle. So now Serral is stuck making roaches, in spite of having better tech. Because if he stops making roaches, he just dies. Which soO perfectly knows. Army supply is obvious. Serral does have the upgrade lead. And now he has the superior angle. Look at this arc. Beautiful by Serral. But one beautiful move can't make up for losing a base. Losing so many workers here. Losing throughout the game. This one move can't make up for everything. And look at the bank from soO. Mutalisks are coming up now. I think making these Mutalisks was inferior to just stacking up himself. I think soO would have just won the game earlier with Hydras or Vipers or even better upgrades. If he had 3-3 Roaches, I think soO could have just played his own style and killed him with Roaches. But instead he goes for the Mutalisks, even starts upgrading them, starts his own +1 armor because he realizes Serral is about to be up so many upgrades. Hydras are coming in, and these Hydras actually saved Serral. He would have died to the Mutalisks otherwise. Which I think he knows. He should know. Where's the Spire? I think he knows. Yeah, he knows. So that's what the Hydras were for. Makes sense. This upgrade though is the wrong upgrade once again. In a sense, it's the wrong upgrade. Obviously you want the speed to counterattack because your opponent is seemingly switching into Mutas, and you want to be able to fight off creep. Look at the lack of creep. But in another sense, you have the tech lead, you have Vipers, you have Hydras, your opponent doesn't, you know for a fact he doesn't. He should have gone for the range first, because his Hydras are actually going to die, because they won't be able to fight the Mutas off. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Viper coming up. Hydra speed, +1 attack, +3 attack, I should say. Now the speed upgrade. This is what I mean though. He's trying to catch soO's army. This time he's going to. Here are the Mutas though. So let's slow down. Can you see all these units now attacking? Serral has such a better angle. But every unit soO has is fighting, while not every unit Serral has is fighting. And now the Mutas are going to come in, and it's going to be really hard to clean them up with like 12 Hydras that aren't even grouped together, so a lot of them are going to die. Here comes Django from soO. Starts targeting down the Hydras, as you should, because as soon as the Hydras die, you kill everything else as well. This amount of Mutas beats this amount of Hydras. Not great targeting by soO, to be fair. He could have killed them easier, not lost so many Mutas, but he was busy macroing back home. And look at Serral's army. He knows. Like, what is he supposed to do now? He lost all his Hydras. If he steps on soO's creep and lets him use the Yangos, this army dies and the game is over. The Mutas are about to kill so many more units. If soO wants to do that, he should have. Yeah, he does. These units are bruised, there's nothing Serral can do. He's been losing throughout the game, and even the superior angles here weren't perfectly utilized by him. He could have played Yangos better, and he could have had Hydra range. He could have had his Hydras grouped to kill the Mutas and give himself a better chance, but he didn't. And now the Mutas have +1 attack. soO is in a perfect position to win the game because he's been ahead and is still ahead. Serral can't move out because he doesn't have enough Hydras yet. soO can keep doing whatever he wants. 56 to 45. soO isn't even going that crazy on drones and has the far superior bank. He can do with that bank whatever he wants. And what soO wants to do is go into the perpetual 20-minute all-in, as the joke was made. Keep going and making only Roaches. Obviously, he should tech up, he should get his upgrades. No reason not to get this upgrade. I think soO slightly misplays by not getting the upgrades. Obviously, the game is going to go on for 15 more minutes. That doesn't just happen without something going wrong. soO has won throughout the game right now. Basically, the game should be over, but it isn't. Look at the bank. Doesn't make any sense for this game to continue for 15 more minutes. The Vipers, though, are going to save Serral and force soO to actually do at least something. soO uses the Mutalisks to kill overworlds now. Serral can't afford this at all. He doesn't have any money to lose overworlds right now. So the Mutalisks did work out in a way, but I think just teching up would have been better. I'd be very interested in some bigger fan of soO's explaining why he goes for the Mutalisks, because I'm sure there's a reason. It's obviously not random. So let's speed up. It's going to be a lot of posturing. Back and forth, obviously. Serral keeps losing overworlds. Supply block now. You hate to see it. And he really doesn't have the money for this. soO keeps taking small fights because he can keep trading. Serral makes a counterattack, which actually does pretty well. Slightly poor targeting, slightly poor move commando. Could have gotten a lot more drones. But once again, if he's using an army to attack, his army is getting smaller. Does have a giant upgrade lead though. +3 attack, +1 armor. soO is so down on upgrades. You would think this is Serral's way back in, right? He's just so far behind though. And Serral actually, I think, sniped the Roach Warren, which was really cool. Because it seems like soO only wants to make Roaches. And he's now up in supply. You would think Serral is coming back into this game. Just like he always does, of course. But this Mo break actually built up soO's bank even more. So he goes for the +2 armor he should have gotten already. soO also spots the Roach counterattack. Serral should have absolutely pressed the advantage. He shouldn't have been scared of this, but he was probably scared of the fact his bank was so low. So if he loses this army, it's all over for him. Still, I think it was a mistake to counterattack when you're behind with a couple of units. This is what you do when you're ahead and you're trying to get even more ahead. That's what soO did to win the game, throughout the game. But now instead, this is not how a counterattack works. If you're going to attack in 2 places at the same time, you have to actually attack at 2 places in 2 places at the same time. Serral's army instead retreats. I think once again he's kind of blind, because he lost so many overworlds to the Mutalisks, right? So he doesn't really see the army, and that's a problem. soO also has the watchtower, so he can move this entire army to defend. Basically, soO keeps outplaying Serral throughout the game, and this attack only now is coming after soO has defended the counter on his 5th. So yeah, this is too slow, too out of position. Breaks down these rocks, which is cool, but then you're going to let soO have an even easier counterattack against you. I don't blame him though for that counter, for killing those rocks. So Serral gets into a decent position, but look at the state of the minerals, look at the state of the base. It's kind of late, isn't it? This isn't the same as what soO did to Serral. So Serral has the superior tech and the superior upgrades. He can actually win this fight. But look at once again, all these units not fighting. Blinding clouds come down. I think just 2 of them, yeah. soO slightly pulls back though, loses a couple of drones, I admit. Look at the supply though. You would think Serral would win this game at this point, in spite of all the disadvantages he had. But here comes the bank, and this is why when you get a hit, it's so simple how you win the game in a mirror matchup. All you have to do is trade armies, then you remax faster and counterattack. And basically this game, a little, too late, and even retreating here is admitting defeat. Without sniping this base, without killing 20-ish drones, retreating here is never going to work. And yeah, these small counterattacks are cool. We all love it when Serral does them, when he's even or ahead. But when you're behind, I know it seems like a cool mechanic you can use to come back, but you can't afford to let soO just remax with his bank, and he still has such a bank. soO can lose another fight like the one he lost here, then lose 2 more fights and he would still have a bank. Obviously not if he lost everything, but still, look at what soO is doing against what Serral is doing. So Serral is attacking here again, but he isn't also attacking here. Instead, soO is attacking the main army of Serral while splitting off a huge army still to snipe this base. And this isn't enough to stop him. Look at the posturing. He hasn't overcommitted. He knows Serral has the better army. When your opponent has the better upgrades, the better tech, that's when you split up. That's when you don't want a real fight like what we saw here and what Serral should have pressed on in. Especially after opening up the reinforced path. So once again, soO is out multitasking Serral. This seems like a cool move, and it is. But look at what it's going to cost Serral. So Serral kills this army because he can, because he has the clearly superior army. But this is basically his entire army. And what he's going to lose is the hatch here and even more drones. 39 to 32, soO is in the lead again, like he has been throughout the game. And Serral has lost his hatch. Serral is now on 3 hatches, which doesn't matter so much for the income because this base is basically dry. It does have a geyser here though, as much as it does for the Warva, which he can't even spend at the moment, to be fair. Look at all these units. This was the counterattack army. Look at how big of a counter soO has. Serral does get some good snipes in, but look at the size of the counter for Serral and the size of the counter for soO. It's just such an unreasonable situation at this point. And I know how the game is going to end up looking in the end. It's going to look like, ooh, Serral was so close to winning the game, right? But soO outplayed him throughout the series. Like, without a doubt, soO should have won this game. Even though he did play with fire by not upgrading and giving Serral such a lead. If only Serral could have the resources to go up to +3 armor as well. But yeah, that's just asking too much when he's in such a poor economic position. To be fair, at this point in the game, soO's bank is spent, he hasn't retaken this base, Serral's counterattacks worked out, but now he's hiding a base, that's how desperate he is. And he's wasting his last resources to hide this base, and soO is going to figure it out. soO is too good at this game. Let's speed it up. So he's posturing, continuously controlled this watchtower. Serral has the better army, like no joke. Just having these two Vipers means he has the better army. Could have sniped the queen with an abduct. He might in a second. This queen is just nonsensical to have here. I guess because soO himself can't spend his resources anymore, he wants the healing. Doesn't have any resources to spend, I should say. So he keeps posturing here. The game looks really even. It's unbelievable how well Serral has done in spite of getting outplayed throughout the game. But that's basically because of his greedy decisions. The greedy decisions that got him punished. These drones not mining. The greedy decisions that got him punished are also the thing keeping him in the game right now. Which is kind of ironic when you think about it. This drone, I think, gave it away. No drone is just going this way. I think it just prompts soO to check in a second. Or his star sense just figures it out. Because he's taking a base, so why wouldn't Serral? And unfortunately, because of the map's design, there's no other place Serral can put this base down. He's not going to put it down here for obvious reasons. He could have tried to hide it here, but come on, that's not Serral's playstyle. Not that kind of Zerg player. Let's speed this up. soO does figure it out. And as soon as he does figure it out, basically Serral has no more hope to have an income. Serral also figures it out, but once again, Serral's counterattack, soO's counterattack / main army. Still such a good army from Serral, but he's so far behind throughout the game. The reason he has such a good army is also the reason he was behind throughout the game. 2 Roaches to 1, I think this describes the game so well. So, going for these abducts, I don't know if this cost him too much energy. Not really, just 1 contaminate, I guess. Not contaminate, blinding cloud. soO immediately punishes by turning around because he knows. Tries to force a cloud, basically. It's too much energy from the Vipers. Not if you ask a Zerg or Terran player though. Let's speed it up. Another overword dice. These are irreplaceable at this point, to be honest. You just can't afford to look at both players' incomes. Sweet counterattack. Meant to stop this base, because if he doesn't, soO outwins. I completely agree with the counterattack this time around. But you have to ask the question, what is Serral defending here? He doesn't even have basic mining of his own. This is just not an income. While soO can definitely make some fine farm here. This counterattack is the first one I completely agree Serral should have done. Sorry. 7 drones dying. soO feels pressure to attack. 2 more Hydras on the way. Probably a mistake. You're going to need muscle here. Serral went for too much finesse when he needed a little more muscle. And this angle is beautiful from soO. In spite of the clouds. Going up this ramp is such a desperation play. It basically means, yeah, I got caught and now I have to sacrifice units and go up the ramp. So, positioning wise, soO outplays Serral once again. Did cost him his 5th base though, his only real mining base. This isn't really mining, and this is mined out. So this is the part everyone remembers. Both players look dead. But the positioning mistake by Serral is going to cost him everything. Can't defend this base, his last mining base. Lost this base, Serral is dead. Lost most of the drones. 11 for soO, 15 for Serral. but he can't even place the hatch. Wow, so technically can. soO now chases this army, and this is the final closing moments of the game. Cute snipe by Serral. Interesting flank by soO. Splitting his units right around here can be dangerous because he doesn't really have the best vision anymore himself. And this is going to be the final engagement. Hatch gets put down by soO with his last resources. Probably a bit of an overextension here. Serral gets a decent flank. But like I said, too much finesse and not enough muscle. This army here is only finesse. And although he has 2 angles and the better upgrades, keep the upgrades in mind. soO now has +2 carapace and quite a lot of muscle still. So roaches are fighting ravagers here, roaches are fighting hydras here, while this army is going to technically also, I think, win. So all of his important units get halved here, and this army, which had a bit more muscle, gets killed off by soO's ravagers and roaches. And this is the final closing moments, both players making a roach, soO making drones, the audacity. It's going to be a micro battle for the finish. Cute abduct, perfectly reasonable. And here's the problem, this is the final closing mistake by Serral. He sees this base, he sees soO's mining, he's about to be back up, and he gets desperate. Chases too far back. There's nothing he can kill with his Vipers. I think he already mined his own evolution chambers. He has to go back to the extractors to get some energy, which obviously would be enough time for soO to get even more army. So he feels compelled to chase with 1 Roach, 2 Hydras, a Ravager, and the Vipers. He has 4 units against basically 7. soO turns around at a good moment, kills the Ravager instantly for 1 Roach. Nothing to tank for these Hydras. No abducts utilized at this point. He should have, if he had the energy, of course, which he doesn't. Even drones are coming back to help. 3 roaches from soO, 2 roaches from Serral, and that's it. Pretty simple micro from this point forward. Drones aren't going to kill roaches with +2 carapace. I think this moment made a lot of people think it was so close, right? But I think throughout the game you got to see soO completely outplay Serral on so many occasions. Out-Serral to win this series and eventually become the IEM Katowice champion. Thanks as always for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. ZvZ is slightly harder for me to break down. I think if I had to rank them, I would say ZVP is easiest to understand for me, then ZvT, then ZvZ. In general, I like to analyze these games anyway though, because in the moment things seem so exciting, right? But when you break them down, who ends up winning or losing, it is a lot more simple to understand. Once again, shout out to IEM Katowice ESL for releasing all these replays so we can just go over the games inch by inch. We don't have to go over votes like we do for the GSL. I once again hope you guys enjoy this. I'll probably be doing some more in the future. This is just really enjoyable for me because I really like this game. In any case, see you when I see you. I'll be back with a new video or stream whenever the fuck that is.